Okay, thanks, Bill. Thanks for joining us, mate, on Undergrowth. This is actually our first session for the year, mate, so this is a special one for us. How you going?
Going really good, Eric. And Eric, good to talk with you again.
That wasn't an echo.
No, that wasn't an echo. That was an Eric and an Eric.
So you just watched a young fella play a bit of OzTag, mate. You're pretty heavily involved in the OzTag, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm the general manager of Australian OzTag, and I've got three areas: Fairfield, Engadine, and North Sydney that I own the licence to.
Yep.
And then my young bloke and my daughter play at St George, and they're both in grand finals today. Unfortunately, the young girl, only 6 of her players could make today because of the touch representative tournament down in Wagga this weekend, and also the OzTag.
Yep.
And they only just got beat, but the older fellow, Charlie, he got up and won.
Okay,
Oh, well.
good stuff.
So you won't be giving her dinner then tonight?
Well, we're at a hotel just opposite the Crest at Bankstown, because I've got to be over there at 6 o'clock in the morning for our Junior State Cup from the 9s, 10s and 11-year-olds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, is that a lot of admin work for you to manage all those different branches?
It is. There's a lot of admin in it, especially when you get to your regos, and then once you've got all your regos sorted out, and you've always got new players joining up, so it's ongoing. But once you've got your regos and everything started, then you've got to go into draws, accommodating the divisions, making sure you got them in the right division. And a lot of the players, especially out at Fairfield, they just love playing the game. So they'll play in 2 and 3 teams a night and ask not to clash with the teams that they're playing in. And when you multiply that by about 40 teams playing that night, to do a draw it's a dead set jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a massive ongoing headache. Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah, it is ongoing, Eric.
And you, mate, last time I saw you, you were up at Coffs Harbour doing the World Cup.
Yeah, World Cup. That was a 2018 World Cup. Had teams come from England, Ireland, South Africa, Japan, Hong Kong. Plenty of teams coming over from New Zealand representing the South Pacific Islands.
Oh,
So
wow.
189 teams all up.
I didn't
Played that up
realise.
in Coffs Harbour over 4 days, and we only just last week made the announcement that the 2021 World Cup will be in Limerick, Ireland. First time ever in the Northern Hemisphere.
Wow, okay.
How good is that? I had no idea that OzTag reached those corners of the globe. Not that globes have a corner, but you know what I mean? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. I think there's around about 20,000 odd players playing in Ireland, another 25 in around London and Leeds. So it's certainly growing, but now we've also got interest from Italy, India, Belgium. So quite a few of the teams, and France is starting to really get going now. They brought 2 teams over as well. And so in the Northern Hemisphere and right through Europe now, it's really starting to take off.
That's that in itself is really good for rugby league, isn't it, Bill? I mean, it's a different form of rugby league, but it gets everyone playing that similar type thing, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it does. It's what we are noticing too, Eric, with the younger kids who may have a slight build or aren't into the contact sport of rugby league. They still love the game, and it's certainly giving them an option. You either play touch or you want to play tag. And the game of OzTag is very close to the real game of rugby league, except for that tackling.
Yep.
So it's, especially amongst the girls too, they love playing it. And so we're just seeing a massive increase in the juniors playing. That rolls into the seniors. We've got blokes still running around in tournaments, 58, 60, 62 years of age, still
Wow.
competing, and that's great to see.
That's a great marketing tool as well, just for rugby league, because it's so close to the game. Say compared to touch, touch is like a completely different game. When I played OzTag, I was like, this is really close to football without the contact, and it's a great way to, to get that rugby league vibe out and around across the world. And for, like you said, people who are a bit lighter in build and don't enjoy that contact aspect of it.
It is, Eric, and the other good thing about it is these young kids who are a slight build and want to stay with the game and then find that they develop, around about that 15, 16, 17 years of age and think, okay, I could give the game a bit of a go now and start playing. So the sport of rugby league doesn't lose those kids to AFL or soccer. It keeps them within the game, and then there's still a chance that they will convert to the tackle and the contact form of rugby league. Whereas if we lost them around about that 11, 12 when they're they're up against some of these really big kids and we lose them to another sport, we never usually get them back. So by keeping them in OzTag, it gives us an opportunity to still remain, for them to remain in the game when they're older.
Why do you think, Bill, that rugby league, the full contact version, has not really blown up worldwide? Say like a rugby union. Obviously, there's many factors, but do you think it's got to do with how intense and how physical the game is? That if you haven't played it from all those years ago, in terms of having it in your kind of system, in your psyche as you grow up from being a young age, that it's really hard to just jump into something like that.
Yeah, it probably is. There's that. I don't know. Even when you hear Americans, when they see the game, they say, "Wow, you guys playing that game with that contact, without padding and all that sort of thing." Yet I watch gridiron and think the way they throw themselves at each other, there's a lot of respect there for their body contact, but they think that ours is, way over the top because we don't have any padding in the way we hit each other, and maybe just in some of those, especially in the Northern Hemisphere with their culture going back that they love football, and they probably grown up on football, and rugby league just has never taken off. The reason, rugby union, I know our OzTag played in the UK, South Africa and Ireland. They all call theirs tag rugby because they're all affiliated with tag, because rugby union is still big over there as well.
Yep.
Where you come down to New Zealand and Australia and we're affiliated with rugby league. I really don't know the answer to it.
It's funny because sorry, so you go, Dad.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, does rugby union have a similar offshoot game as OzTag is to rugby league?
I know over here in Australia they have a game called Walletag for the kids.
Oh, okay.
And it is a similar game. Over in Ireland, England, and that, it's just their tag has affiliated with rugby over there, but they don't have a sport of tag rugby in the union form. They've just lined up with OzTag, and that's what we call it. England, Ireland, Hong Kong, Japan, we all agreed that they play the sport of OzTag, and OzTag being like rugby league, soccer, AFL, the sport of tag, we call it OzTag.
Yeah, that's awesome. As I've gotten out of the game and spent years away from the game and looking back at just how intense the actual game of rugby league is, and you often see many people going from rugby league, which is you've got to have a pretty rounded skill set. They go over to other sports and excel to a degree, opposed to on the other side of things, other sports people have played different sports all their lives, trying to come over to rugby league. They haven't been so successful. It just goes to show how intense that rugby league is as a sport, and like you were saying, it's so good to be able to spread rugby league rules and the game thereabouts without the contact across the world through OzTag. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. The numbers are just increasing. When I said that last year, we had I think it was 189 teams playing that World Cup. 3 years previous, we had at the Sunshine Coast, I think we had 160 teams from around the world, 98 teams in 2012. So it'll be interesting to see what numbers we get in the Northern Hemisphere, knowing sometimes cost is also a prohibitive factor when you've got some of these players can't afford to take the time off or the cost to travel to the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And that's why we're saying now we're going to pick our Australian teams probably this year to give them a good 18 months to get themselves organised with sponsors, saving. But just the way the sport is growing, we're still expecting we're going to get 180 odd teams up there, but it'll be different teams coming from different countries in the Northern Hemisphere.
And multiple teams coming from like one country?
Yeah,
or just,
and it's with our World Cup, we had 32 nations that were covered, and that's because we've got heritage players here playing OzTag in Australia, and their heritage, and they fit the heritage criteria, and they might be Maltese or Italian or Cook Islands Australia, Samoa Australia. Yep. So we allow that as well. And then you've got your full playing nations, which are New Zealand, Hong Kong, England, Ireland, South Africa, Japan, and France. And as we get the islands like Cook Islands or Samoa or Vietnam, and they start to play the sport within their own country, then they will start to come over as a full playing member and not Like the Vietnam side is really all players who are heritage players playing here in Australia.
Yeah, what an amazing concept! It's going from strength to strength. It sounds. I had no idea that it had that reach. It's really good to hear. It's such a good game. I loved it. Like I tried to play touch, and me being a little bit taller and lankier, it wasn't really my thing. I wasn't as agile as say the shorter, some of the little whippets they get in there. But Oztag really made me feel like it wasn't that far away. And now when anyone asks me, oh, my son's looking to get into this, he doesn't like the contact. What do you think? Touch? I always say, no, go to Oztag. It's just so much closer to rugby league. You get to kick the ball too on the last, which gives them a feel of that kind of element. And yeah, it's really cool. I love it.
Kick the ball, Eric, and then if you drop the ball, you can still pick it up and play. So you're really playing rugby league.
Yep.
But the tag is replicating the tackle. And even when you run through a gap and you get tagged, by the time you stop, run back to where you were tagged and play the ball, it again replicates the time factor in being tackled, getting up off the ground and playing the ball. So It's very similar in its timing as well.
That's right. Did you ever play it down at Cronulla, Bill?
No, I haven't played down at Cronulla. I run around sometimes at Fairfield at my comp, but mainly refereeing and just in the running of it, running my own competitions and also running Australian Oztag. I don't have time to get out there and play too much.
Yeah, mate. I remember playing at Cronulla, and it was the most it was such a competitive comp. It was like there was nearly fights every week. It was so competitive. I was like, shit, this is some people's state of origin. It was some of the passion that you'd see in the eyes of some of the participants. It was something to see.
You take it up, mate, and I'll rip that tag off really hard.
You just take the tag with an accidental drop of the shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. Mate, so what? Getting off Oztag, what are your thoughts? Just general thoughts on the modern day game of rugby league since you've kind of been, haven't been on the field refereeing.
Yeah, to be honest with it, I'm not as big a fan of the game today as what I have been. I've loved the off season when Fox put on all the old games from the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. That's the footy that I loved. That's the footy where you tackled a player and the main aim was to get him on the ground. And you might hold him down a touch until the referee tells you to get up off him, but the whole thing was to tackle him and knock him down to the ground. And those little 1%ers were still there too, where you used your foot to play the ball, where if you did get offside at a kickoff or something like that, you were penalised. I just think over the last 5 to 10 years with all the, what they call that dancing, where they grab, they hit, make contact with the player, hold him up, get the second bloke in, dance with him a little bit, and then the third bloke comes in and will topple him over and have a bit of a wrestle on the way down and everything. It's just tarnished the game a little bit.
Yep.
And a little bit too predictable. So I do love going back and watching the 80s and 90s, but then again, I love the game of rugby league, so I still watch it anyway.
How could you police that then? How could you stop that? Could there be a rule maybe where, I don't know, what rule could you apply there?
Very, very difficult, because I think it's just the evolution of coaching.
Yeah, the coaches have changed it.
When I spent that 2004 season after I retired, and Ricky Stewart was at the Roosters, and he recruited me to be a consultant to give the players that the insight on how the referee was thinking or what the referee's doing. And then on game day, I was watching the referee and relaying messages to Ricky about what the referee was doing. Were we about to give a penalty away? How can we manage this referee and so on? So I think that would have been difficult. But as far as the policing of those little 1%ers about making them put their foot on the ball, stay behind the kickoffs, that was easy. That's easily done. And we saw that last year when they tried to bring that all back. They'd let it go too far. And so when they tried to clamp back on it, it just led to a massive amount of penalties and everyone got upset with the entertainment of the game. They let it go too far. If you stay on top of it and then you're only tweaking it all the time, well, then the impact is not as big on the game or on the fans when they're watching it. And unfortunately, they let it go too far. By the time they tried to bring it back, it had gone too far and they really had to smash the game around a fair bit.
I think since the game's become so important, I think Melbourne Storm's been a big part of this. They've made the ruck area so important, and it's turned the game into, as you said, Bill, you can just tell what's going to happen. Every team plays similar, and they've just got different players playing in those positions.
Yeah, I think that, and also the players when we do watch those games back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the players weren't full-time. They still had other occupations or they still had other outside interests.
Yeah.
And when it became really full-time and so professional that they were spending all those hours together, training, doing their weights and developing the body shapes and everything changed, the mentality changed. And I think that's where, they started getting in the wrestling coaches and then other coaches, like even with Ricky and, me being a referee's consultant to him. Everyone was just trying to get that edge. And so they were introducing psychologists and everything else, and it just changed the whole way they played the game, developed the bodies for the game.
Tell me if you think I'm stupid, Bill.
You're stupid.
I am stupid. I know. I knew that was coming. I left myself wide open.
You led with
there.
the chin, yep.
Yeah, mate. Over policing, like you said, because of all the new wrestling and all this new ruck focus, there's got to be more policing. But do you think over policing? So for me, back in the day, I used to love watching a flowing game that didn't have so many stops. It seems like with all the eyeballs now and all the technology stopping and pulling up everything, it's kind of taken it away from being what rugby league was, and it's kind of this new watered down version of, say, American football, so to speak, in regards to flags on the play and always stopping here. And it's putting that halt in the momentum, making it not so much of a fun spectator sport anymore, when I think a lot of the fun watching football and playing football, even growing up, was you used to get away with a bit of stuff, and that was part of the game. If you could get away from the ref's eyes and be a half a metre offside or, maybe something else a little bit sneaky here and there, then I don't know, with all this stop-start policing, it just seems to really suck the momentum and the joy out of the game. For me personally, would that be silly in saying that? It's okay if it is. I understand.
It's a pretty good appraisal of. That's why I said I still love the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s, and I'm not so big a fan on the last 10 years. And that's what you're saying there. And I think that's developed with the evolution of the player, with the coaching and what they're doing, the speed of the game and the body size of them. And all of a sudden they're looking for that rest, so they're slowing it down in places.
Yeah.
And it is that and because that's happening, there's an over-policing by the referees sometimes. I'd like to see the referees just go back to saying, number 2, get back with me. If number 2 doesn't quite make it, but he's been working with you and he doesn't stop and break down the play, then you show that little bit of leniency, you let it play. And if the team's not disadvantaged, you let it just play on and let's just keep the momentum of the game rolling. And I think that's what we're missing these days. Some of the referees coming into the game have only ever played footy up until they were 12, 13, 14, so they've never really walked in the shoes. And I think that also plays a part with the refereeing. If you get the referees that have played, like a lot of us older referees, we'd played right up until our early 20s and that, we've walked in the shoes, we had an empathy for the game, and we could read the game that way where we could put the whistle in the pocket, get the respect of the players and play it. So I'd like to see the referees go out there and say, number 2, number 4, number 10, forget the names now, use their numbers, get the players to work with you. If they do, put the whistle in the pocket and let it roll. If they don't, blow the whistle and say, well, this is what's going to happen if you don't work with me.
Well,
yeah.
Bill, I remember you telling me a story a little while ago about, they're wearing the in-ear monitors and all the talking that goes on. I remember the first time you were telling me about when you had the in-ear monitors on and what they were saying to you and how much pressure goes on and how many voices there are in their ears.
Yeah, and unfortunately that is happening. They've got they call him a match day coach, and he is sitting up in a box and he's got contact with the referee and the touch judges. And normally there'll be a try scored or something like that, and he'll relay a little bit of information, and even it might be a pat on the back saying, look, your 10 metres is good, ruck speed's good, keep going. But there are other times when, depending on who that match day coach is, they're relaying stuff down during the game and saying things to the bloke then. You've got the touch judges relaying messages right throughout the game. And I know when I had the earpiece in there, I used to say to the touch judges and that, I don't want to hear from you, and the video referee, I'd say, I don't want to hear from you unless it's broke. Then when I do hear from you, I know you're trying to fix something. Otherwise, shut up. And that's the way it was.
That's a great point. It's like now that with all the eyeballs in it, it's like if you slowed the game of rugby league down, watched it in slow motion, because it's so high octane and there's so many collisions and so many, moments where things can go wrong that are, sometimes you can't stop it, like little offsides, for an example.
Yeah.
it's making it really. You could dead set pull it up every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? There's so much wrong stuff going on in a big collision when you fall to the ground. There's a wrestle in terms of holding too long or stepping on someone's hand or doing something. It just seems like it's just so friggin' hard now to let the game flow with all these eyeballs. Just the pressure to get every call right and be perfect in a game that's imperfect.
It is, and that's where we in the media and the fans, the spectators, we've put a lot of undue pressure on the referees because we want perfection and we want it to go the team's way that you're supporting, all that sort of thing. And these guys are under a lot of pressure. And, you know, back in one day there was the game on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock was on the ABC. There was another game maybe on Channel 9 or 10 on a Sunday. One or two ABC and 2UE or 2GB had a call. The other games, the TV channel would send out one camera to just get a bit of footage to show a couple of clips for the news that night. And I know when I was getting my games, you'd get your appointment. If you got a game that was covered by radio or a TV, you were all of a sudden under more pressure thinking, oh, I've got more eyes on me or more listeners on me with commentary.
Absolutely.
Compared to the game that you would get where you knew it wasn't being covered by any media except some camera getting a few clips.
Yep.
So much less pressure.
Point.
Now, every game covered by radio, by numerous radio, every game covered by numerous channels.
Fox. Yeah.
So the pressure is unbelievable.
Bloody hell, it's just changed, isn't it? Like, not to bag, I'm more in awe today than I ever have been in my life of the athletic ability of the individual players and some of the things that the teams, you know, do. It's phenomenal. But yeah, it's hard not to talk about it because I guess you end up coming across as a bitter old ex-footballer sometimes when we're always sounding like we're being negative. I am in awe of the athletic ability and the way that they're progressing in that regard. But yeah, bloody bring back those, like you said, late 90s, early 2000s.
Bring back the Biff.
Bring back the Biff, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but I don't think we'll ever see that again.
No, I don't
Not in
think
this
so.
day and age in society.
Mate,
Definitely.
you refereed 300 and actually first you were born in the western suburbs. I didn't know this. You were born out west. You're a Westie.
Yep, grew up at Canley Heights.
Yep.
Went to Canley Heights Public School, then to Fairvale High. Played with the Canley Heights Dragons, who my dad was one of the co-founders.
Yep.
And grew up there and left there when I was about 24. And I'm back there now, as I said, running the Fairfield Oztag, playing Oztag at Chisholm Park, Rossford Park, Endeavour Field, all the fields that I used to referee A grade in the Parramatta District when I was coming through or playing football with the Canley Dragons, and now I'm back there with my Oztag.
Who did you follow in the early days when you were a young kid growing up?
South Sydney. When I first started following the rugby league, it was in back 65, 66.
Yep.
Souths were the big team. My mum was a bunny supporter, and even though I was living out in the western suburbs, I wanted to be backing a winner, so I started backing South Sydney, and I stuck with them right up until I started refereeing.
Okay.
And then one of my first games was Souths and Norths. My mum said, how do you think you'll go refereeing the bunnies, seeing you're a rabbit supporter all your life? And I said, oh, Mum, we'll see how we go. And I came off at the end of the game, and she said, how was that? And I said, easy. I hate them. Mario Fennick, Craig Coleman, Mick Podgy, Neil Baker, they got stuck into me.
The
and
worst.
They gave me every reason to dislike them, and I thought, you know what? If I hate them all, I can't get into trouble.
That's a great philosophy.
There are some of the best sledges ever there in one package.
Yep, and I copped a lot of them in one game.
What a way to change like your thoughts and feelings towards a team. Just one game of refereeing and you hate their guts.
Yep. Yeah, and then I thought, this is easy. One red team, one green team, and if I hate them all, I'll never have a problem. And so that's pretty much how I've gone through the rest of my career. It was by the colour of their jersey. I didn't care who they were. When I refereed New South Wales, Queensland, it was blue and maroon. I didn't care. And I really enjoyed that happened, because even now when I watch games, I don't care for any team. I just like to see a good game of footy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's a great way to look at it.
Mate, you refereed 392 first-grade games, 21 State of Origin, 25 Test matches, and 10 grand finals. Mate, I'm just looking. You did 3 grand finals, 89 to 91, and then you didn't referee a grand final from then 97 and 2003 in between as well. Was there what happened there in between 91 and 97?
92. I had a game, Newcastle versus Brisbane, about 2 or 3 rounds before the semis, and it wasn't one of my best performances, and I copped a bit of flack over it, and I got dropped down to about number 8.
Oh, shit.
With a couple of rounds to go. I fought back. I did the 3rd grade grand final. The following year I did reserve grade, and then in 1994, my old mate Greg McCallum announced his retirement. It was pretty muted around the press and everything that I was in front and would get the grand final in 94, but my old mate announced his retirement, and I actually said to me 2 touch judges, I think Greg will get a handshake. He'll probably tell you that he earned it. I'd like to say he got a handshake. He did the 94 grand final. Then 95, 96, I sat out because of the Super League. I didn't referee.
Yes, of course. Okay.
And as soon as I came back in 97, bang, hit the straps and did the grand finals from then on in.
Beautiful. Okay. Mate, also, you had an issue with, I do remember this actually, and in 2001 there was, you had a problem with radio broadcaster Alan Jones. He said some bad things about yourself, but it was all settled and stuff like that. That was would have been a bit of a hard time.
Yeah, it was. He did an interview with Neil Whittaker, who at the time was the CEO of the new NRL. And in that, Alan said that he thought that referees were biased, and in particular, Bill Harrigan was biased towards Super League teams that had now all become one with the ARL. So he said that whenever I refereed a Super League team, I was biased towards them.
Oh, shit.
That I was cheating. And my integrity is above all, and that's one thing that I will protect big time. So I had no other option but to take him on in the courts and took him for defamation.
Right.
2001, they settled it. In court, he fought it, obviously, and then in court, it went my way and cleared my name. That was the main thing. Yeah,
good stuff. He's had a few of those, Alan, anyway, over his time. But, mate, you also did, you refereed in the... in that big TV production, the Gladiators, there for a while too. How long did that last for?
Yeah, that did the series way back in 2007, 2008, I think it was.
Yeah.
Did that series. That lasted the one series. They were going to do a couple of series. They had them penned in, but the cost factor was costing them over $1 million per episode.
Wow.
I think we did 14 or 16 episodes of it.
Shit, okay.
And it was just too expensive, but I had a little role in the old Gladiators.
Yep.
Who was your favourite gladiator?
Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
She was big. She had the big mohawk hairdo.
Oh, I think I know. I've met her. She played LFL.
That's her.
Yeah, Shani. Yeah,
that's her.
Yeah, because I did a promo. Our band Shinobi played at one of their launches, and her and her friends were there, and they were up the front headbanging. She had the big mohawk. I thought, what a champion! Yeah, that's right. She was Amazon. That's
Shani
right.
was great. She was really good, and she was terrific with my kids who were young at that age when I was on that show, and so they were there. You know, You Beauty. They got to go backstage with the Gladiators and mingle with them and everything, and Shani was terrific with them. Yeah,
she's still around. I see her on social media. She's still playing in the. I don't know what comp it's called, but she's, I think maybe over in America. I'm not sure anyway. But, Bill, what about, just getting back to the footy for a little bit, like if you were in charge today, what would would there be a rule that you took away or a rule that you added straight away?
I think I'd be jumping on this time wasting, especially when you put someone in the sin bin. I'm sick of when you put someone in the sin bin, they stand there, they look at you, and then they dawdle off. Just wasting time, allowing their team to get set and everything again. So I'd certainly say, righto, when you are sim binned, you've got 15 or 20 seconds to get off the field. If you're not off by then, you either extend the 10 minutes by 2 minutes, or for every second that you take longer than that, it gets added on to your 10 minutes. Something like that. I just like all these shot clocks with the scrums. They stand there and look at the clock and wait. I'd like to get all that. Just keep that momentum going. And the big thing that I would do is I'd put the interchange to 6. I wouldn't have gone to 8 like they've done. I'd have gone to 6 and said, let's try and get a bit of a war of attrition back in here with the big players and let the halves and 5/8 start to have their time when the big fellas get tired and see how that goes. So that's probably the 2 things I'd do.
That's you have my vote, mate. That's great. Just taking away that time wasting. That's a great idea. The shot clock on there, instead of them standing there arguing like they're going to change the decision, they got 10 seconds once you've spoken to them to get their ass off the field. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that means The clock's running. Like you give them 20 seconds to get off the field, and if that means they're not going to get off the field and have to go to the short sideline on the other side of the field, well then so be it. And then you just do the walk. Obviously, when you're walking around the outside of that perimeter, you're copping it from some of the fans, especially if you're at an away game.
Yeah.
But that's just bad luck, and I just think that we get on with it then. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for fans. Well, I know when I'm on commentary with Triple M, you're getting people ringing in saying how frustrated they are with that. Players just standing there and dawdling off when they get sin binned and that. So that's something I jump on pretty quick.
How are you finding the media? You doing Fox this year as well, Bill?
Yeah, just signed up again with Fox to do the Controversy Corner on a Sunday night.
Oh, nice.
That went nicely last year. They were very happy with that. We got our own show about round 16, I think.
Yep.
They end up giving us our own half-hour show on a Sunday night, and that rated well, so they've got us back again. The same foursome, Big Blocker Roach, Buzz Rothfield and Graham Hughes.
Yeah, good.
So we're back again on Sunday night, and I'm still doing the Sunday afternoon match of the day with Triple M.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good program too. I listen to that when I'm driving. What about music, Bill? You're into a bit of a rocker yourself. You play guitar, yeah?
I have strum the guitar a little bit, not too flash on it.
Bill's a front man. He's a front man.
But I like the getting up and having a sing. I'm not too good at it, but I still like to get up and do it.
He goes all right. You're playing with the best rock and roll band ever in the world, Eric Grothe and the Gurus, mate. You kill it.
Yep, that's mate. And that's just make me sound good, make me look good.
What's your go-to? What do you build out? What do you like to build out?
Building out Sweet Home Alabama,
Yep.
Proud Mary, bit of Richard Clapton with I'm an Island and Deep Water.
Deep Water, yep.
Oh, wow.
And a bit of In Excess with Don't Change and Never Tear Us Apart.
Oh, good! What a good little playlist. That's awesome.
It goes down well too. He does a great job. Now it's a lot of fun. And we're hopefully on a cruise this year that you might be jumping on too, Bill.
I've got the email, Eric. I've got the email and says what dates we're on it, and there was two that I had to choose from. One of them, Eric Grothe and the Gurus were on. And I said, well, there's no choice there. That's the one I'm on.
Good stuff.
That's the one I'm on. And just to say to Eric Jr., it was always on my bucket list to sing as a lead singer in a band, and Eric Sr. gave me that opportunity, and so I'm forever in debt to him.
Mate,
oh, that's unreal, mate. Good on you. That's
mate,
awesome.
it was. I tell you what, at one stage, it was going to be called Bill Harrigan and the Gurus at one stage, yeah.
Yeah, you have to get up, man. Hopefully, Kel will catch up one day, and when we're playing a gig, and I'll jump on, and we'll have a big jam. That'll be awesome.
Absolutely, that'll be fantastic. Billy, just with currently how football's been sort of through the ringer with what's happened off the field, how do you been looking at that side of things?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I just think, sometimes with our players, there's an expectation of them to be almost perfection, that they can't do a thing wrong, whereas we know that other people outside in society will go out and they'll have a mishap and they might pee up around behind a tree and they might say something wrong in public or do something wrong, and it never gets seen or never gets heard about. But with the footballers, because of their profile, every time they do something, it's under scrutiny. Yep. So they've got to be probably better than it. But sometimes I feel sorry for them that they can't live that same sort of lifestyle where they don't have to worry about being recognised everywhere. And with these cameras on phones, just every time you turn around, someone's got a camera aiming straight at you.
Yep.
And I know you guys would see, even when you're playing in the band, and I've done it when I've jumped up with Eric, the mobile phones are up there straight away, in your face filming you, and you know it's going to be all over Facebook or some social media somewhere within seconds. So I feel sorry for him in that way, but then, when that's reality, you've just got to cop it on the chin and say, well, I just got to be better than that. And I know when I was refereeing towards the back end and the phones were coming out, sometimes I wouldn't go out because I didn't want to be seen or recognised or have phones. I just wanted to stay at home, watch telly on the lounge and have a beer at home. Because if you did go to the pub, have a few beers, even though you might only have 2 or 3 beers, someone gets a photo of you or a video and they say, well, look, there's Harrigan on the grog.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, 100%.
And it's just harsh for them.
Yeah, I remember because Timmy Smith, he wasn't the best on the drink and he got a bit sloppy, but there was a few times there where we'd be out and he literally stood up one day and the back of the chair got caught on the leg of another chair and the chair fell over, and the next day he was in that much trouble in the media and it's just like they've opened Pandora's box. Like the eyeballs, just scrutiny, just staring, waiting for, like they're perfect themselves, waiting for one little indiscrepancy to report. And yeah, it is unfair. But like you said, it kind of is part and parcel, isn't it? You got to know now if you're signing a rugby league contract, there's eyeballs on you, and if you're gonna. Yeah, mate, it always seems to be alcohol, really. Like, I love a beer, and I'd never say cut out drinking, but, geez, I don't know. Is it getting to that? It's going to have to get there some stage.
I hate that they slap the game on the end of it by saying, rugby league in trouble again. Rugby league's suffering because of this. It's an individual human thing when someone buggers up. It's not the game's fault. It's whether he plays rugby league or he plays marbles or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's a human and he's made some mistakes. We've got to leave the game alone. It's not the game.
Yeah, well, gossip just sells. Rugby league gossip sells, doesn't it? And they sell their papers. They're going to put on a bad story on the back of their headline with their headlines, and they are a good story because no one's buying the good one, are they?
No, they don't. That's the unfortunate thing about it. You never hear about the good stuff. You never hear about all the players and the good work that they do. It's always that one bloke who got drunk and said the wrong thing, or has allegedly touched a girl on the backside or something like that, and that's the unfortunate part. Yeah. It is reality. They've got to accept it. It's not going to change. The current one that they're all talking about, should Jack de Belin be stood down or should he play? Well, I've always gone along the thing that if you're innocent, he should be allowed to keep doing it. But what he has done, Eric, what you made that point, it's not the game of rugby league that did it. It was... Yeah. If he is guilty, it was Jack de Belin, not rugby league.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the unfortunate thing. The sports gets tarnished because it gets dragged in. I've had a couple of things that have happened at OzTag. It had nothing to do with OzTag. It's just that the personal problems between these two people, when they come together at the OzTag field, they got stuck into each other. But it had nothing to do with the game, and it wasn't about OzTag. It was about these two people with an issue they have away from the game, but they just happened to bump each other down at an OzTag field.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing. So OzTag got tarnished, but it had nothing to do with OzTag.
Yeah, they keep saying that another rugby league player in trouble, another rugby league player does this, another rugby league. Forget about rugby league. Another human makes an error. Simple
and the intelligent people that you really care about what they think about you, they know all this shit anyway. They know that it's getting blown out of proportion. So, yeah, really, like, we give it too much focus as well, go back and forth with our focus on their stories and make it a big thing when we should just probably be mute and just move on with it, It's kind of just adding fuel to the fire. But, yeah, it's a shame that it's turned into that, but it just has, hasn't it? But in closing, Bill, for the interview, mate, is there anyone who stands out as the biggest punish that you've ever had to deal with when you're refereeing?
The biggest punish was Jeff Tuvey.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
And I've done a cruise with Tubes.
Yeah.
Eric and I have done a cruise with Tubes just last year. And
best bloke ever.
Yeah, pound for pound, I always rate him. And he's in my book too, where I rated him as pound for pound probably the toughest player that I've ever refereed.
Mate, how tough was he? That's unbelievable.
But what a punish when it come to, he was either hooker or halfback, so he was always we're always in the same vicinity as each other on the field. And no matter what I did, he was chirping away at me and having a shot and having a whinge. What a punish.
Mate, I remember when I was playing and you would referee, I always wondered what you thought about all the different players. And I always thought, I have to ask you one day, or ask the referee one day, who the biggest punishes are. It's good to know. I didn't get to play against Twos, but mate, it makes so much sense that you nominated him, because I remember just seeing him in more shots on TV than not of him just in your ear, just ripping into you.
Yeah. I'll tell you another one that wasn't far behind him either was Marty Bella.
Oh,
wow,
really?
What a punish he was.
Yeah, right.
He was a whinger, Marty Bella, and Paul Langmack just trying to test you all the time. What a pain he is too. All good blokes, but Jesus, they were painful.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Billy. Thank you so much, mate. We appreciate your time, and mate, it's been a great insight into what you're doing these days and what happened while you were refereeing, mate. We appreciate your time, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And
thanks a lot, Bill.
Mate, I'll see you on the boat.
Yes, hopefully. Yes, we're definitely happening, mate. Look forward to that.
State of Origin 1. Okay, boys. See you later.
Good on you, mate.
See you, champion.
Bye, mate.